It's so good to be with you all in this, sharing this very special field of energy. We're coming into that feminine archetypal quality, as Marguerite was saying, the Mary frequency. It's a lineage, and it's more than specific individuals within this lineage. I feel like it's a vibrational quality that we are resonating to, which is about the new earth. It's about the new humanity, the new emergence, the new evolution that we're moving into as a planet, as a collective, which is so powerful. Um, Mira Alfasa, the mother, the spiritual partner of Sri Aurobindo, she's another of these same frequencies, the Mary frequency. And I'll say more about that in terms of what I'll share later about the daughter of Isa, Jesus, whose name was Elmira. Very few people are even aware that he had a daughter, um, and who she was begotten with. So I'll get into that story a little bit, but I want to say as a preface, all stories are simply stories until we make them our own. When we make them our own, they move from historical narrative, from archetypal mythologies, into our own story, into our own journey of remembrance, into a journey of awakening. And I think that's what we're all conveying here, each of us. We each carry a certain frequency that then finds another frequency. We match frequencies. We become more than any of us individually could ever hope to hold. And this is the time where lineages are coming together. The the mother lineage, the father lineage. Um, in the ancient world, the patriarchal lineages were perhaps more common in the prophetic traditions than the matriarchal lineages. They both have their place, they both have meaning. And I'm going to share a little bit about the Christian lineage from a more shamanic or matriarchal perspective. And this comes from what we understand, what we have learned about Christianity in India, which predates even the four Gospels that we understand from the New Testament, the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So let me start with a little bit of the background, and then I'll weave in some of the threads together that Marguerite was also bringing forward. So I think we all know that after the crucifixion, that many of the disciples were sent to India, in particular Thomas, who happens to be the twin of Jesus. This was known in the early church. There's even paintings of Mother Mary suckling both twins together. So when Thomas came to the Malabar coast of India, he founded a church amongst the Jewish population of that time that had settled in Kashmir, had settled in the Malabar coast, including Kerala, Goa, also across to Madras, which is now currently Chennai. And there were writings held within this early Christian church, two in particular, which I want to refer to. One was known as the Acts of Isa, and the other was known as the Acts of Thomas. Not the Gospel of Thomas, that's a different um, gospel. The Acts of Thomas and the Acts of Isa. And it's not well known in the West. These are becoming familiar now in different parts of the world. Um, there's there's the Church of the East, the Christian Church of the East, that has been bringing forward some of this information. So, according to the Acts of Isa, Remember, this predates the four Gospels that we have known in the Christian, the Western Christian Church. So, according to the Acts of Isa, Isa was actually born um, in Palestine, but from a parentage that was raised in Kashmir. The Kashmiri lineage, the so-called lost tribes of Israel, these were the 10 tribes of Israel that had been dislocated and relocated to Afghanistan and to Kashmir during the times when the two tribes north of the Jordan, the 10 tribes south of the Jordan, were at war with each other, maybe 700 BC. And in that particular time, when Jesus' parents were rulers of the land of Kash in Kashmir, there were many, many different tribes of these Hebrew nations known as the Bani Israel who lived there. That entire valley was basically a Jewish community. What is Kashmir today was primarily Hebrew at that time, the Bani Israel. And then many different tribes came along, tribes from the north coming southwards, intermarrying with these 10 tribes, creating different lineages. This was the lineage that Isa was born into. There was a prophecy from the Buddhist lineage, which was also tied in to this, that 500 years after the Buddha, that the new bodhisattva, the next bodhisattva, would arise. And his job would be not only to serve as a bodhisattva, but to also be a Miteya, one who brings the tribes together. This is the 10 tribes and the 2 tribes. So this is why Isa had to travel, or his parents had to travel east into Palestine to give birth there, to bring this prophecy into fruition. And so this is a long story, but where I'll start with, since we're talking about the Marys, is that according to these scriptures, um, the one we know today as Mary Magdalene was born in India. Some say he was born in Ethiopia. Some say she was had origins in Palestine. According to this tradition, she was born as an Adivasi orphan. So an Adivasi is like a hill tribe in northern India in the land of Magad, which was a kingdom in Bihar, what's currently Bihar. Magad then became Magadha, which became Magdalena. So it was Marie of Magadha. So she was an orphan who was found by the priests of the temple of Jagannath in Puri. And she was raised to be uh, a, a what's the word? A tantrika in that time. Now, Isa has a parallel journey. So many of the Gospels talk about his time between the years of 13 and 29, when there was nothing really known about him. What happened during that time? So, according to this tradition, he came along with his teachers, including the ones known as the three wise men, which was the Tibetan, the Persian, um, oracles, priests, and tulkus, who brought him back into the East. So this would have been Persia, India, Tibet, Nepal, Sri Lanka, to study the teachings that were held in the East at that time. So one of the travels that Isa made into India, I think he was probably in his late teens at this time, he became a monk in the temple of Jagannath in Puri. So this was maybe a 2 or 3 year training, studying the Indian Vedic tradition. Um, and during this time, he was also assigned to a tantrika to experience the Kundalini practices, the raising of Kundalini through the channels known as the nadis, the chakras, the nadis, the movement of the base energy to join with the crown, Shakti and Shiva. And the priestess that was assigned to him uh, in the studies, guess who? Was Marie of Magadha. So they became very close. In fact, Isa petitioned at the end of his training to acknowledge her as a teacher because in those days women were not allowed to be teachers. They're not carriers of wisdom in those cultures. And so he petitioned for her to become a teacher, to take that sacred thread. And she did, finally. And then the two of them traveled together in North India for a short period of time. She went back into Puri. She was then admitted as a teacher and had her own circle of women that she taught in these mysteries. So Isa, meanwhile, he was traveling through India. He found his own teachers, including an immortal yogi known as Chaitanya. This was in the lineage known as the Nath Yogis. Um, I know for many of you listening to this is very new information and maybe a little bit confusing because where did all this information come from? Where has it been hiding? How come this is not known to people, especially not in the West? How can we count on this? Is this really accurate? Or is this someone's stories that were made up? Um, so, in my book, Isa, Son of the Sun, there's a whole list of references in the back from Hindu, Christian, Buddhist, Tibetan, and early Christian traditions, which go into this. Also, the history of the kings of Kashmir. There's a whole lineage um, of kings that are discussed in this historical document, including Isa's parents. So there is quite a bit of historical evidence for this alternate view of history, this alternative view of Christianity. And it brings in a missing piece, which I find is really important because the early Western tradition has been very um, patriarchal, as father based, God as father. The Eastern lineage is mother based, Shakti. So Shiva and Shakti coming together in wholeness, in unity, in embrace of each other. And so, what some people may not be aware of is that after Isa or Jesus returned to the West, so this would have been around the age of 29, 30, that's when he had his mission. That's when he taught um, his disciples that he gathered together after his baptism with John the Baptist, who was his cousin. Um, his mother, Mariam, whose other name in Kashmir was Amrita Prabha, was sisters with the one we know as Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist. And so they grew up together when um, Isa came to Palestine with his parents. Actually, he didn't come, he was born there, sorry. His parents came to Palestine to birth Isa. And the two of them, Isa and John, were together in some of the Essene communities after Isa had to flee. His parents had to flee from Herod because of the prophecy that Herod was afraid that the Messiah would emerge to somehow bring the new kingdom into Palestine. Not the way he thought, but this was truly what ended up emerging. So, in response to John the Baptist and many of his disciples then listened to Isa, became his disciples as well. Isa brought a whole different perspective, and this had to do with the teachings of the East. Remember, he had traveled in the East, he had become a monk in the Hindu traditions, he had his own immortal teachers in the yogic arts. He had become quite adept in the teaching of the miracles, the different bodies, how these five bodies come together to create a body of light. And how, as we merge and merge with this body of light, we become sons and daughters of God. This is um, for all of us. to experience, not just one specific being that we refer to as the Son of God, exclusive of everybody else. So this is part of the tradition held in the Eastern churches. So after the 2 or 3 years that he had his ministry in Palestine, he was crucified. We all know that story. What most people are not aware of is that he survived that crucifixion, not through resurrection, but through resuscitation. In fact, he did not die. He was taken down from the cross, still alive. This was all part of a plot to rescue him from the priests. Pontius Pilate happened to be a secret disciple of Jesus, and he, along with Nicodemus and his uncle Joseph, Yusuf of Arimathea, um, plotted to rescue him. Um, the the sponge raised by the Roman soldier to his lips were were was an actual opioid that brought him into a yogic trance, and he had learned how to do this, and so as a result of this, he was made to appear as if he had died. He was taken down alive. By the next day, he had been revived. There were Essenes working with him, and his own teacher, Chaitanya, showed up as well. The earthquake that happened the night before was the mark of his arrival, um, in the way that these yogis had learned to travel. And this is a complex story. I won't go into all the details of this, but he survived the crucifixion. He then later moved back into Kashmir with certain disciples of his. Marie, who had come to Palestine following him, who became his most favored disciple, his most adept disciple, went on from there to France. She was pregnant at that time, gave birth to a daughter, Sarah, who was the daughter of Isa and Marie. So again, these are stories that are not typically known in the Western churches. The Cathars, some of the Gnostics in that part of the world, France, south of France in particular, were a lineage um, sourced in Marie of Magadha, her daughter Sarah, their travels and the uh, journeys into England and then into what's known as um, Ephesus in Turkey. So what happened with Marie at that point is she created a whole lineage that had to do with the secret teachings of Isa, which he had brought from India, which then became part of the lineage of the Cathars, the Gnostics. And of course, this was frowned down by the church, who launched a crusade to exterminate the Cathars and to bring back the true teachings of the church. So at this point, Mary Magdalene, Mary of Magadha, this was all before the Cathar tradition. Um, she seeded this. It was carried on by Sarah, their daughter, who then intersected with another lineage, which I'll get into now. So forgive me for making this a little bit complex. It's a long story and it's a very um, interconnected story. I go into this in much more detail in my trilogy. So now Jesus or Isa goes back to Kashmir. Next year, I'll be actually taking a group of people to follow in those footsteps through the monasteries that he first went back into Pahalgam, which is where the most recent terrorist attack happened a month ago, um, in one of the hamlets in Kashmir, which was the birthplace of a woman, Miran, who then later became Isa's wife. Again, this is a story that is not known in the West, but it's part of what is revealed in in the Acts of Isa, the Acts of Thomas, and in the local traditions of Kashmir. So Miran was the daughter of another kingdom based in Pahalgam in Kashmir. So her parents were also rulers. This was a neighboring kingdom to Kash, where Isa's parents were born. So they came with Isa back into Kash, along with other disciples. Thomas, at that point, or Thomas as he was known, went down to Malabar. Isa remained in Kashmir. He married Miran, um, who was basically a shaman. She had been trained in the shamanic arts. Her ancestors were um, blend a blend of the Hebrew tribes, the 10 lost tribes, the Bani Israel, and the shamanic um, lineages that came down from the Ural Mountains, from the Caucasus Mountains in Russia, the steppes of Russia. So it's an amazing story. And now Isa and Miran had children. Um, Hiranya and Eliakim were two sons that were born to them, who later became associated with the Grail legends. Went across to France and England with their father on one of their travels. Stayed. Um, this I go into this story in the second book, Miran, daughter of the moon, and also Elmira, child of the stars. Elmira, the daughter, there's not a whole lot of information about this. So I'll just let it come from my own um, superconscious awareness. And that then became another story of where we are at today. So all these stories are linked together, all these streams of awareness come together in this moment because we are at the verge of a profound shift of consciousness. Um, so here we have the the Marys. We have Maryam, the mother of Jesus. We have Marie of Magadha, Mary Magdalene. We have Niran, the wife of Jesus, Isa in Kashmir. We have Elmira, the daughter. And then, as I said earlier, there was Mira Alfasa, the one who was known as the mother, who, along with Sri Aurobindo, had the mission to anchor the supramental force on this earth. Now, this supramental force is here as a unified consciousness that supports us in birthing the next human race, Homo luminous, or what Sri Aurobindo referred to as the sun-eyed children of a new dawn. This is what the Egyptian pharaohs, Akhenaten, for instance, were also referring to. Akhetaten, the city that was built um, at that time, was also known as the City of Dawn. Auroville is a city of dawn. This is a place I've been spending some time in near Pondicherry, which was the seat of the ashram of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. So it's a time for bringing through this new humanity, the children of the new dawn. And Elmira had a role in this. Her role was to be the Manu of this next root race. Now, what is a Manu? Um, Adam was a Manu. He brought through a root race after the Great Flood. The Atlantean flood, during which a huge part of the population of the earth was decimated, then gave rise to a new root race, which is our current human race, um, Homo sapiens. There were root races before that, the Lemurian, the Atlantean. Each of them was initiated through a Manu A Manu is one who holds the blueprint for the new consciousness, the genetic blueprint. So Elmira was the Manu of this upcoming root race, the sixth and seventh root races that we are currently preparing for. So in some of my books, including the last one, Elmira, Child of the Stars, and also Gaia Luminous and Homo Luminous, I go into more detail about the the cosmological and geological aspects of what's going on today, right now. We'll be seeing massive changes starting even this year. This year was a shift from Kali Yuga into Dwapara Yuga. Spring equinox this year was the end of the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness. A new root race is rising as we enter in this new age of light. So we are going through a preparation for galactic superwave to enter. We're experiencing changes within the sun. We're experiencing a geomagnetic shift. This is changing our relationship with the five bodies. And this, in turn, is allowing a soul quality to be incarnated on a collective level that hasn't happened, it hasn't been time for this to happen until now. And now with the supramental descent that's taking place, it provides the opportunity for this new root race to be birthed through Elmira or Mira Alfasa. In this third book of the trilogy, I make a case that Mira Alfasa is actually the future self of Elmira. I mean, this is much more fictionalized, actually, but it feels like um, it's a metaphor that's very real for this age. So the frequency, the Mary frequency, continues on. It goes beyond the ones we've known as the Marys in the Bible to include Miran, to include Elmira, to include Mira, Alfasa, and that aspect of us, which is now emerging. Emergence, again, merging, emergence, mare, water, pyramid, fire in the middle. These words are all related together. It's an alchemy of the soul as we enter into new possibilities for human awakening. So there's a frequency of resonance that as we become aware of these things, we begin to transmit. Many of you, as you're listening to these new stories, are beginning to experience that transmission for yourself. There's a vibrational quality that you begin to experience within yourselves. You're beginning to open to what it means to be the new human, the new human race, the new potentials that are rising. And the truth is, it's not going to be very long for Homo luminous to emerge fully. It's a little bit ironical to me that we have AI on the one hand, artificial intelligence, and on the other hand, we have advanced intelligence, AI. We have transhumanism on the one hand, and the new human, the Gnostic human that's emerging on the other. Two timelines, two possibilities or probabilities. One is more mentalized because um, this timeline is one that we have been participating in for the last 6,000 years at least. And now there's a new timeline that's emerging, which is ready to emerge fully. Um, this is invisible still to external appearance, but many of us are beginning to experience this within. We're seeing this in our dreams, we're seeing this in our visions, we're seeing this in our mythologies as they emerge, and we're experiencing this in our own bodies as our bodies prepare to hold this new quality of light. So, as Jesus said, um, new wineskins for new wine, new timelines for new stories. Uh, new stories for new times. And this is a time when a new story is being called forth. A new paradigm is emerging that has to do with who we are. The paradigm that had to do with the old story of Jesus is that Jesus is the only begotten Son of God. It's a very hierarchical system. There's God up there, there's man up down here. Never the twain shall meet. And only through Jesus as a mediator, as the Savior, as the um, Son of God, that we can find salvation. The new mythology, the new paradigm, is that we were never separate. Uh, the divine aspect of humanity and the human aspect of divinity are coming together now as one. Soul is incarnating, embodying. There's an embodiment process, just as much as the personality is transcending an ascending process. Ascension and descension are one um, act in this process of spiritual union, human spiritual coming together as one, Shiva Shakti joining together within human consciousness. Um, so what we call and this is all something that the shamanic lineages of India, of Kashmir, um, were familiar with. What we know today as Kashmir Shaivism is the lineage that grew out of this ancient lineage that Isa and Miran together had founded. And this is huge. They actually founded a lineage together that married aspects of the West and the East, the father and the mother, the god and the goddess. The awareness that all these are bridged within ourselves. We are the bridge between heaven and earth. The veil that we have seen as Maya, what we call illusion, is not an illusion in the sense that this world is illusion. It's the idea that this world is separate from uh, infinite consciousness. That's the illusion, that we are separate. We are not separate. We are infinite consciousness experiencing ourselves as both human and divine, both form and formless, both Shiva and Shakti, right now. This is our potential. This is what the new humanity, Homo luminous, represents. And this is what this lineage, um, Hiranya, Eliakim, Elmira, these sons and daughters of Isa and Miran, along with Sarah, the daughter of Isa with Mary of Magadha, in this tradition, Sarah and Eliakim became married partners. They gave birth to what's now known as the Grail lineage, which led eventually to the birth of King Arthur, um, who had the opportunity to bring the lineage of the kings of ancient England and um, the elfin lineage of Old England together. So Hiranya married the daughter of an elfin king. Um, the the tribe that we know today as Swat. This was like a lineage that used to be incarnate as humans on the surface of the earth. During one of the wars that were fought, they had to go underground. They shifted dimensional frequency. They became part of what's known as the elfin lineage. So this elfin lineage was what Hiranya entered into. The order of the Merlins was established by him in order to bring these two lineages together. The Merlin that was part of King Arthur's time was given this responsibility to harmonize these two lineages. Unfortunately, it did not work out as planned, and the experiment had to wait until this particular time. Now we're given that opportunity once again. That's why Arthur was known as the once and future king. So there's many different stories that come together here, weaving together, and it's just so powerful to understand the bigger picture of what's going on back then, what's happening right now, what we're moving into as we move into our next root race. Within the next 22 years, between maybe, yeah, I would say before the year 2046, there's going to be a whole sequence of events taking place. I detailed this in Elmira, Child of the Stars. A whole sequence of events that eventually lead to the supramental descent and the creation of a seventh universe. The seventh universe goes out of beyond duality, even in terms of physical dimensional reality. Um, what we are experiencing today as matter does not have to be dense in the sense that it's um, not permeable to consciousness. There's a density of consciousness within matter that has to do more with the density of the logical mind, the realm of duality. But as we come out of this realm of duality, we're coming into more of a plasticity within matter, where consciousness can shape matter, move through matter in ways that we're only beginning to understand. The ability to travel across time and space instantaneously, just like that, just like um, the ascended masters, like the immortals, are able to do um, at uh, at will. This is something that the human race is now emerging into, what the Homo luminous species is remembering. Um, the ability to move across dimensions, not needing nourishment through food, through water, through prana. It's like prana becomes multidimensional. We experience that full consciousness of humanity, divinity, um, coming together into this incarnation. This is what the Eastern story that I'm alluding to is about. It's about a new paradigm that makes possible a new human. Moving out to the paradigm that has to do with limitation, that has to do with hierarchy, that has to do with sin, um, and coming into a remembrance, a true remembrance of who we are as divine humans. So um, I know we are limited as far as time, so I'll stop with that. But do check out those books. There's the trilogy. I'm working on the fourth book in the trilogy, or I should say quadrology, right now. I'm calling it Cosmoluminous. And that also goes with the Homo Luminous and Gaia Luminous, that go into more of the breakdown of what's going on cosmological, geological, psychological, um, political, cultural, and spiritual realms.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kiara.